Well, good morning, my friends. How are you? We had quite an interesting members live yesterday. If you are not a member, you grab that link. I'm telling you, it is a ton of fun. Who is in here? There's Nani, Baby Kisses, V. Oakley, my girl Angel P. Retro made it in. Hey, Britt, what are you doing? Where's Walking Dead? Is she going to poke her head in and say she's new here? The hell's going on? All right, so we have basically I hate to cross cases, but today I'm going to. But for good reason. Because La Lazy is getting sentenced next week. Susan Smith, if you can believe it, is up for parole. Now, hold on. What do I see about a birthday? Whose birthday is it? Someone said happy birthday to Michelle. What up, Rexy? Member for 27 months. Happy hump day, Shonda. Happy hump day. Absolutely. Whose birthday is it? Well, let's do hump day first. We got to visit Mike, okay? We know the routine. We got to see Mike first.
Oh, guess what day it is? Guess what day it is? Huh? Anybody? Julie, hey, guess what day it is? Oh, come on, I know you can hear me. Mike. What day is it, Mike? Leslie, guess what today is?
It's hump day.
We were pink. Who has their pink on? Joy Jones is here. She took a little bit of a hiatus because she's had some things going on. Woo. And, okay, now hold on. On my end, it shows Joy doesn't have a wrench. Fuck my life. Every time YouTube fixes what isn't broken, it wreaks havoc on my world. I'm telling you. Add as moderator. That's the reason I have my phone open. You know. Lots of applications going on. So it's Michelle Reed Duncan's birthday. What do you mean Mermaid doesn't have a wrench? You all about to give me some heart palpitations. What's going on? Fuck. Shit. All right. If y'all are fucking around on the other side, I can't help you. Let's sing happy birthday. By the way, I'm just kidding. Let's sing happy birthday to Michelle Reed Duncan. Everyone, come on. Happy birthday, Michelle, and I hope you have the most tremendous birthday ever. Baby Kisses said, I don't want a wrench. It's a real shit thing when you go into certain chats, and next thing you know, they throw you a wrench, and you're sitting there going, ugh, what do you want me to do? Because I don't like telling people they can say this, or that. I just don't. And I don't know who knows each other. I don't know what's an inside joke. I don't know what's acceptable for the host, but I'm always like, yeah, that's okay. I'll just continue watching. Now, we have 103 people in here. Dare I ask who is new here? I'm afraid to ask. If you are new or hiding in the bushes, please come out and say hola to your new friends and family. Again, so glad you're here. I know who is on pins and needles to fuck with me today, and that's our good friend Walking Dead. Boy, she threw me for a loop that one day when she's like, I'm new here. And I was like, what? My goodness. Sonia Allen said, hola, hello, not new. Look at all of the love. Look at that. V. Oakley's been a member for 17 months. Hell, some marriages don't last that long. Misty Dew said, I'm hiding in the bushes. Real Rockin' Robin said, we are all new as we start a new day today. All right, I'll give that to you. Walking Dead is being spicy again. She said, I'm on the edge of my seat, ready to say something, but I controlled myself. My goodness. All right, we are going to start with Leilani Simon. As you know, she was found guilty of the murder of Quentin Simon. Like I said, I don't like to combine cases. Sometimes I bring one up and then the other. I mean, I will do that. The only reason I'm doing it this way today is because both of these bitches have a big week next week. A big week. Good morning, Angel Girl. We have Leilani, who is going to be sentenced next week. Susan Smith is up for parole. Woo! Woo! So I'm going to start with Leilani.
Good evening and thanks for joining us for the news at 7. I'm Dawn Baker.
And I'm Haley Boland. Just weeks ago, a Chatham County jury found Leilani Simon guilty in the murder of her 20-month-old son, Quentin.
Well, tonight we bring you an interview you will only find right here on WTOC. Leilani Simon's lead defense attorney speaking out about the guilty verdict in the case. WTOC Shay Schrader joining us now live. Shay, you sat down with Martin Hilliard this afternoon. What did he have to say with you?
Yes, good evening, Dawn and Haley. I spoke with Hilliard about the fact that he doesn't believe the state proved murder charges against Simon and what's next in the case. Simon's sentencing is next week, but her defense team is already looking ahead to a long appeal process.
I mean, I was a little shocked, to be honest with you. I mean,
why was he shocked? Doesn't he know the law? Doesn't he understand the evidence that was presented to a jury of her peers? Why was he shocked? Personally, I was shocked by the Richard Allen verdict because I still don't understand how Richard Allen did what was done in such a short amount of time with no one seeing him. But you have Martin here, Martin Hilliard. I mean, I was shocked. Carla Barnes says, love you, Brooks. Love you too, Carla. I was shocked. Why? Why would you be shocked?
I mean, I was a little shocked, to be honest with you. I mean, like anyone else, I mean, I didn't expect it to come back the way it did.
Martin Hilliard recalling the moment his client, Leilani Simon, became a convicted murderer after a 2.5-week trial that saw around 40 witnesses and 100 pieces of evidence presented solely by the prosecution. Walk me through that decision not to call any of your own witnesses to the stand.
In a case like this that's purely circumstantial, where they don't know what happened, where they don't have a manner or method of death, where they don't have any clear idea of how, when, or why, the death occurred, why give the jury anything other to base their verdict on than the evidence or lack of evidence from the state?
Hilliard and his co-counsel, Robert Peirce, zeroed in on what they call a lack of physical evidence from the prosecution.
Now remember, his co-counsel, who is on the screen right now, he's the one that leaned over, put his left butt cheek up in the air, and blew wind during the trial. He was also one of the ones that said, everyone's tired, we need to go home early. Circumstantial, he was found at the dump. He was found at the dump. They have Leilani, the night of his murder, time-stamped cameras everywhere from her walking in looking like a vagabond into the Circle K to get 2 tall boys, and then her at the dumpster. Well, guess where Quentin was? In the dumpster. And then found at Waste Management. Listen, these guys are public defenders, okay? They're public defenders. Maybe as a public defender, if your client says, I need to appeal, then you have to do it. I don't know. But I'd be done with it. I'd be like, go to hell, bitch. Go to hell, bitch. Did you not hear everything they have on you? Do you not remember your fun time at Tybee Island? You don't remember all the things you did after your son went missing? I'd be like, look, I did my due diligence. I carried what the Constitution says has to happen as far as due process. So stop.
On what they call a lack of physical evidence from the prosecution when they were cross-examining witnesses. During the trial, they also cast doubt on Daniel Youngkin, Simon's then boyfriend, who was also in the home when Quentin disappeared. The prosecution, at times, however, painting Youngkin as a sympathetic figure.
He made himself a cooperating witness. So no, doesn't surprise me.
Do you believe that the police should have looked closer at him?
Absolutely. I mean, I don't know. I don't sit here and pretend to know what happened, but that's kind of their job. You know, it's not to make a decision, 15 minutes into an investigation.
Hilliard says at this point, he and his team are looking down the road at the appeal process. They'll ask that an appellate lawyer be appointed to oversee the appeal, including a motion for a new trial.
It's always good to have a fresh set of eyes to do that. They'll argue the motion for new trial, and if it's granted, then it's granted at the trial court level. Then
Okay. I'm going to ask your opinion. Your opinion. Do you think Leilani should get a new trial? Anyone? 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 Or do you think there is still reasonable doubt that maybe someone else in the house did this? She won't, in my opinion, get a new trial. No way. But they will go through the appellate court, maybe get her sentence reduced. Maybe at some time when she's an old lady, she'll get paroled. That's in my opinion, that's the best they can do. Plead the fifth. What's up, girlfriend? That's the best they can do, in my opinion.
trial court level, then she'd get a retrial. If it's denied at the trial court level, then it goes to the Georgia Supreme Court, and the Georgia Supreme Court will hear. But there are certain issues and certain things you have to preserve at the motion for new trial level. And so that's why I always have another lawyer do it who specializes in, appellate issues.
Hilliard added at the end of the interview that he wants people to know he believes that the prosecutors on the case, that's Tim Dean and Jenny Parker, as well as Judge Tammy Stokes, did their jobs well and professionally. Simon will be sentenced on November 21st, and WTOC will continue to bring you the latest updates in this case. For now, live in the newsroom, Shay Schrader, WTOC News.
Woo! So next week, she gets sentenced. I personally thought that Judge Tammy Stokes did a great job. I didn't like her as well as the judge in Sarah Boone's trial because he was like, listen, 15 minutes, that's your break. And I mean, 14 minutes and 30 seconds later, your asses better be right back in the courtroom, ready to rumble. 100%. That's what he did. It seems like she was extremely kind to the jury, which you have to be. You don't want them frustrated, pissed off. I need to go home. I'm sick of sitting here. Why do you keep talking about this shit? You don't want that. So they have to have, their breaks and things like that. I understand that. Because let's face it, we all have to have a snack. We all have to pee. We all have to get a cup of coffee to sit there and have this information pounded in our head. But Dr. Grande weighed in. Man, I feel bad for his wife because that's his O-face. Could you imagine that on you going to Pound Town? Oh, no, I couldn't. Anyway, he has done a psychological profile of Leilani.
Grande. Today I'll be analyzing the case of Leilani Simon. First, I'll look at the background of this case, move to the timeline of the crime, then offer my analysis. Leilani Marie Simon was born in November 1999 and lived in the state of Georgia. Throughout her life, she was very active romantically. She had a son named Zane with a man named Cody, a son named Quentin with a man named Henry, and a daughter named Sky with a man named Daniel. So all three of her children had different fathers. Leilani and her three children lived in a 2,700 square foot, 3-bedroom house on Buckhalter Road in Savannah, Georgia. Also living in the house were her grandmother, Billie Jo Betterton, her brother Paul, and her boyfriend Daniel, who again is the father of Leilani's daughter Sky.
Okay. I am not picking on women. I am asking women, do you think there might be a little issue with Leilani that in such a short amount of time, and I mean it's a short amount of time, that she had children with 3 different men and never married one of them? I'm not saying that's her get out of jail free card, but that might be something that Billie Jo could have been like, she's not well adjusted. She's just not. Baby Kisses says, in my opinion, she's bipolar. That's what Billie Jo said. Bipolar is not your get out of free jail card. It's just not. And she was actually never diagnosed with that. It's just Billie's words. That's it. Christina Gilmore said, I'm new here. Woohoo! Come on. Come on, everyone. Welcome Christina Gilmore, please. So glad you're here, Christina, and you are going to like it here. I'm telling you, if you would like to become a member, there is the link. We have a lot of fun on our members' lives. All right, so Leilani and Danny, as we know, moved into the house on Buckholter. By the way, all that mulch and landscaping wasn't done by Leilani. All right? She couldn't even pick up a Doritos bag out of the room that they all lived in.
Leilani and Daniel used drugs, and the couple had a tumultuous relationship. At some point, Billy Joe filed for custody of Zane and Quentin. Leilani was ordered to pay $150 a month in child support. On September 7, 2022, the police responded to an alleged domestic dispute at the house on Buckhalter Road. Leilani said that she and her mother had a physical confrontation over clothes in the washing machine. The next day, Billy Joe made a filing in the county court to evict her daughter and Daniel. She was not interested in their money. Rather, Billy Joe just wanted them gone. She claimed that no one was living in peace in the house and the couple had damaged property. Despite Billy Joe's efforts.
Hold on, Angel P said Dr. Grande is a big fan of Disney cruises. Oh, I didn't know that. Also, I just read something yesterday. I didn't know that Walt Disney, off topic, as you know, actually was an FBI informant. And the more names he gave to the FBI, the more reign he had on what he was doing. I'll have to write me an email to Dr. Grande.
Leilani and Daniel continued to live in the house. Now moving to the timeline of the crime. On October 5, 2022, at 9:39 a.m., Leilani called 911 and reported that her 20-month-old son, Quentin, was missing from his playpen. She stated that she woke up and discovered that the front door was unlocked. She believed that someone had entered her house and kidnapped Quentin when she was sleeping. During the same time, her brother Paul and her boyfriend Daniel were also asleep in the house. Here is what the police found during the course of their investigation. On October 4, 2022, the day before Quentin was reported missing, Leilani was in pain from having her wisdom teeth removed. She used cocaine, Percocet, and marijuana late on October.
That combination would bring someone back from the dead. Cocaine, marijuana, and Percocet. Okay? No. And it was made clear in the trial that she had a twofer pulled, not her wisdom teeth taken out. You see, you don't just roll into Aspen Dental and they just surgically remove all of them. No. She had a tooth pulled. So that means broke-ass bitch didn't have the money to have a cavity filled or a root canal done. Hey, I'm not blaming her for that one, okay? Because we know dentists and dermatologists are really expensive. So if she was in that kind of pain and she had it pulled, end of story. We know that she texted Danny and said, looks like I have to go to 204, meaning she was going to get some rugs, okay? She was already given pain medication. And has anyone in here ever had their wisdom teeth removed? Normally, after about 12 hours, you don't feel any pain. You just take the medication. You don't suck dick. You don't use a straw. You eat with a spoon, all of that stuff.
Or 4 and/or early on October 5. There was a security system in the house on Buckhalter Road at 1:02 a.m. on October 5. The back door was opened. Leilani climbed in her Dodge Journey and drove to a trailer park where she threw something in a dumpster.
She threw something in a dumpster, and that something was her son, little Quentin Simon. Exactly, V. Oakley, you can't smoke. Nope, because you have an open socket there. Can't do it. Now, all of my sons had their wisdom teeth removed in the military. Every one of them. They get no pain meds. None. None. And they have great insurance, TRICARE. They do the whole, wash your mouth out with salt water, But yeah, there's no pain meds. However, I hope you had a good Veterans Day, my friend. She said, I did too. No pain meds. I mean, obviously, they put you out when they're doing it. You're comfortable during the procedure. But there's no, they're not going to send you home with 90 days worth of pain medicine. No, they don't like to dope up their soldiers.
Leilani climbed in her Dodge Journey and drove to a trailer park where she threw something in a dumpster. The trailer park was about 2 miles from her house. Later, she claimed that she was throwing away spoiled food. Leilani returned to the house before 1:30 a.m. She opened various doors a few more times over the next hour or so. This was picked up by the security system. After this, she went to sleep. Based on cell phone activity and interviews, the police believe that Leilani's brother Paul and her boyfriend Daniel were asleep all night in the house. They did not know what Leilani was doing. They did not know about her mysterious adventure to the dumpster. Billy Joe was out of town at the time Quentin disappeared, so she was not a potential suspect. On October 5 at 5:20 a.m., Daniel sent a text message to a babysitter who watched Leilani's children, indicating that she did not have to watch the children that morning. At 6 a.m., Daniel left for work. He worked at a nearby facility where he loaded trailers. At 9:14 a.m., Leilani called Daniel while he was at work and said Quentin was not there. Daniel immediately left work. He literally ran out of the facility to his vehicle, leaving his jacket and cigarettes behind. He later said that his boss mailed him the jacket and cigarettes. According to the security system in the house on Buckhalter Road, the front door opened at 9:20 a.m. As I mentioned, Leilani called 911 at 9:39 a.m. The police developed a theory that Leilani murdered Quentin and placed his body in a dumpster at the trailer park. They believed that no one else was involved in this crime. On November 18, Quentin's remains were found in the Chatham County landfill. The remains were located in an area of the landfill where the contents of the dumpster from the trailer park had been dumped. Due to decomposition and being crushed by heavy machinery used in the landfill, it was not possible to determine Quentin's cause of death. On November 21, 2022, Leilani Simon was arrested and charged with 1 count of malice murder, 2 counts of felony murder, 1 count of concealing the death of another, 1 count of making a false report, and 14 counts of making a false statement. On October 25, 2024, after a 10-day trial, Leilani was convicted of all 19 charges. At the time I'm making this video, a date for her sentencing has not yet been set by the court. She is facing up to life in prison without the possibility of parole. Now moving to my analysis.
Okay, what do you think Judge Tammy Stokes is going to throw down on Leilani next week? Because judges can basically do whatever they want to do. Truth is they can. Will it be 2 life sentences for felony murder and malice murder? Will it be life no parole and she's just going to tie it up in a bow and be done with it? Is it going to be you're going to serve first the 2 years per count for lying to the police and then start your sentence for murder? I hope she gives her a stern talking to and gives her 2 life sentences, gives her penalties for what she did during the investigation, and says no parole. I'm going to go back to Susan Smith. Susan Smith was given life, but the jurors did not know that when they decided on life, they didn't realize that she could be paroled someday. They didn't know that. Sophia said, I bet she gets life with parole. Ugh, I'm afraid of that. I really am afraid of that. All right, let's get to his analysis of Leilani.
Leilani Simon maintains her innocence, although she has offered different stories about what happened. Her defense argued that there is no evidence that Leilani killed Quentin. The state, of course, disagrees. Although the evidence was circumstantial, they argue it was overwhelming. This brings me to the question, was Leilani guilty of murder? Let's take a look at the evidence both for and against the idea that she was guilty, starting with the inculpatory factors. Witnesses suggested that Leilani hated Quentin and did not treat him very well. For example, one teenager who occasionally babysat Leilani's children said that she witnessed Leilani push Quentin in a swimming pool when he was not wearing flotation devices. On another occasion, the teenager saw Leilani backhand Quentin across the face. Quentin disappeared under mysterious circumstances during a time when Leilani was the only adult near him who was awake. She left the house, visited a dumpster, and threw something away. Leilani initially claimed that she went to bed at 12 a.m. and woke up at 9 a.m. Later, she admitted that she left after midnight, but told another lie. She claimed that she went out to get a medication used to treat toothaches. Again, she had just had her wisdom teeth pulled out. Supposedly, her friend Misty had this medication and was going to meet her at a Chevron gas station. The friend's name was actually Melissa, and she went by the name Missy, not Misty. Melissa said that she never met Leilani that night. Eventually, Leilani claimed that she went out that night to pay a debt of $20 to a drug dealer. Upon discovering Quentin missing in the morning, Leilani called her boyfriend Daniel before opening the front door. If Leilani really believed someone had entered the house through the front door and taken Quentin, why didn't she immediately open the front door? Quentin's remains were found in a landfill. The location of his body was connected to the dumpster Leilani visited only hours before reporting him missing. Tests on his brain revealed there were no drugs in Quentin's system, which rules out the theory that he accidentally overdosed on drugs.
And this is important, as we know, because it was suggested by the defense, which in my opinion, it's done and over. That last nail was put in the coffin, not to be grim, no pun intended. I mean for Leilani. They tested the brain matter and said There was no drugs in his system. So there was no accident. There was no he got accidentally into something. And let's talk about this. Even if he accidentally got into something, you don't put a baby in the dumpster. You call 911.
One theory was that Leilani and Daniel had so many drugs sitting around that Quentin must have grabbed some of those drugs and overdosed. The back of Leilani's vehicle was covered in rice cereal, as if she thought this would disguise odor. Weeks after Quentin's disappearance, Leilani claimed that her boyfriend Daniel was the one who left the house, not her. This same day, in a secretly recorded conversation with Daniel, Leilani confirmed that she was the one who left the house. Now moving to the exculpatory factors. There are no witnesses to the murder, there is no video, no physical evidence tied Leilani to the crime. There was no obvious motive for Leilani to commit the murder. The state was unable to prove how Quentin died. Even though the autopsy ruled out an overdose, Quentin could have died from another medical condition or from an accident. The police reported that the room where Quentin stayed had an overwhelming odor of vomit. If his death was accidental, Leilani would not be guilty of murder, although she would still be guilty of crimes related to concealing evidence. According to the defense, initially, Daniel said that he saw Quentin alive at 3 a.m. and just after 5:30 a.m. This is not what Daniel testified to, but if it's true, then Leilani's mysterious trip to the dumpster did not involve disposing of Quentin's body. It's possible that someone did enter the house and take Quentin. An unidentified perpetrator could be responsible. When considering all the evidence in this case, do I think that Leilani was guilty of murder? Yes. I think the defense did a better job than would be expected given the evidence, but Leilani was guilty beyond a reasonable doubt. What do I think happened in this case? This is just a theory, my opinion. Leilani was self-centered, angry, impulsive, irresponsible, vulnerable, insecure, attention-seeking, sensation-seeking, addicted to substances, afraid of abandonment, suffered from mood instability, and had a sense of entitlement. She had a lot of difficulty in romantic relationships with men. At around the time of the murder, Leilani was having sex with her drug dealer behind Daniel's back. Leilani desperately wanted Daniel to be attracted to her sexually. She sent him a text message which read, quote, "I want to feel like my body is worth showing off and not like it's just been trashed from having 3 kids. I want to feel the way you made me feel in the beginning, like I'm treasured and safe, not like I'm just here because you really don't have a choice," unquote. In a video that Leilani sent to Daniel, she made it sound like she was the one who was desperate. She said, quote, "You did not want me, and I wanted you. I wanted you more than life itself," unquote.
Whist. I agree. I think he hit the nail on the head. Look at what he's saying. Or listen.
Leilani was guilty of murder? Yes. I think the defense did a better job than would be expected given the evidence, but Leilani was guilty beyond a reasonable doubt. What do I think happened in this case? This is just a theory, my opinion. Leilani was self-centered, angry, impulsive, irresponsible, vulnerable, insecure, attention-seeking, sensation-seeking, addicted to substances, afraid of abandonment, suffered from mood instability, and had a sense of entitlement. She had a lot of difficulty in romantic relationships with men. At around the time of the murder, Leilani was having sex with her drug dealer behind Daniel's back. Leilani desperately wanted Daniel to be attracted to her sexually. She sent him a text message which read, quote, "I want to feel like my body is worth showing off and not like it's just been trashed from having 3 kids. I want to feel the way you made me feel in the beginning, like I'm treasured and safe, not like I'm just here because you really don't have a choice."
Well, he's got a choice, but he didn't make the same choice that she made. And Miss Ann Horn, thank you for putting this in. Billy Joe does not have the other 2 kids. They're in foster care. She also has a pending case with CPS and DFACS for contempt of court. She next to go to jail. Now, Lilazy's attorney said, as far as he knows, the children are with Billy. They are not. And that spread like wildfire. They've already removed custody from Billy. She's already failed. And the statute of limitations is not up for them to prosecute her for child endangerment. Mind you, it's going to be a misdemeanor because she was not even in the state when this happened. It makes you wonder how she was even nominated to get custody of her grandchildren when she lost custody of her own.
Unquote. In a video that Leilani sent to Daniel, she made it sound like she was the one who was desperate. She said, quote, "You did not want me, and I wanted you. I wanted you more than life itself," unquote. Everything in Leilani's life was based on gaining pleasure from drugs and from gaining satisfaction through romantic relationships. Her existence was a series of dramatic episodes, strong emotions, and impulsive decision-making. On the night of the murder, a number of unfortunate circumstances conspired. For example, Leilani had just had a fight with Daniel. She was in pain from having her wisdom teeth removed. She was using drugs, and she was looking for sex from her drug dealer, but did not obtain it that night. This failure to find sexual satisfaction focused Leilani's efforts back on Daniel. She needed to find some way to attract his attention. Leilani had never really cared for her son Quentin. She wished that she never had him. Her desperation to get close to Daniel and her hatred of Quentin led to a homicidal plan. Leilani murdered Quentin and threw his body in a dumpster. There wasn't much concern about getting caught. She had it in her mind that if the police did not find Quentin in 24 hours, their chances of finding him were very low. She was probably thinking of the statistics surrounding stranger abductions, but those are not applicable when the victim's mother is the killer. This false sense of security led Leilani to making several mistakes, like talking to the police. Leilani's low level of guilt about committing the murder was evident quickly after it occurred. For example, 2 weeks later, she and her mother were spotted drinking at a beach bar near Tybee Island. In my opinion, a fair sentence.
I'm glad he brought that up because for whatever reason in court, they didn't bring that up. They didn't bring it up. Now we have a whole playlist for Quentin Simon. If anybody wants to see it, you can go through it. There is a lot of stuff to read. A lot. Susan just put it in. Thank you, just me. Thank you, girlfriend.
She and her mother were spotted drinking at a beach bar near Tybee Island. In my opinion, a fair sentence for Leilani would be life in prison without the possibility of parole. I think that sentence is used too much. I'm not a fan of it for many situations, including some murders. But in this case, it is warranted. Now moving to my final thoughts. There's this sense when looking at Quentin's living conditions that he never had a chance. His mother's emotional reactivity was not compatible with maintaining a safe environment for children. Leilani was so dangerous, she was bound to get someone killed. It was just a matter of who. A lot of people in the world want pleasure. Many people like taking drugs. Having sex is a popular goal. Finding a suitable romantic partner is a major desire. Simply being sensation-seeking is not necessarily the end of the world. Again, a lot of people want excitement. A lot of people want to feel pleasure. That's not always a bad thing. The problem is when the trait is combined with a lack of empathy. Some people are fine with gaining pleasure at the expense of others. Leilani was willing to kill her son in order for the possibility of gaining a momentary connection with an undesirable boyfriend. That is all Quentin's life was worth to her. Those are my thoughts on the case of Leilani Simon. Thank you so much for watching. I'll talk to you soon.
Well, I think he summed it up perfectly. I really do. Miss Ann Horn said, BJ lives only 7 miles from me. God bless you, Miss Ann Horn. God bless you. The landfill is 9 miles from me. I have to ride by it when I go that way home. And when I do, baby Quentin is always on my mind. Have you seen, Miss Ann Horn, have you seen the memorial they put out there for Quentin? That Waste Management put out there for him? I couldn't imagine. I think about that man that picked up that dumpster that day. And when he realized what happened, he had to take time off work. I mean, he was devastated. And we talk about it on this channel quite a bit. Yes, there's a victim. Yes, there's a criminal, sometimes multiple. However, the web goes on and on and on and on to the people it affects. Like Miss Ann Horn. She has to drive by that landfill. And it of course, rightfully so, it upsets her. All right, now we're going to talk about Susan Smith here in a second. But first, let's look at what the chief in Chatham County said about Leilani. We all have Thanksgiving on the brain, and this is what he said.
And we believe that this was the right move today to be able to do that. She doesn't deserve a Thanksgiving, quite frankly, if I can go off script a little bit. Quentin deserves that.
Quentin deserves that. So now we're getting to Susan Smith. She is up for parole next Wednesday. Next Wednesday. As you know, she claimed that she was carjacked by, as she said, a Negro man. Those are her words, not mine. No point in coming after me for it. It didn't take SLED too long to figure out everything she was saying didn't make any sense. You know, her son Alex, her and David's son Alex, would have been 30 years old a few weeks ago. He would have had a job, maybe at a college, maybe at a trade school, married, his own home. She denied those 2 boys of their entire life. Why? Why? Well, let me show you. Same as the rest of them. Same as the rest of these nasty bitches. Look at your screen, please. Monsters. Monsters. Carla Barnes says, I've been trying to send you $10 for half an hour. Can't seem to get it figured out. It happens to me too. I have to get on my computer to do it. Because when I go into different chats and I just want to say, hey, there you go. For some reason, I can't do it from my phone. That's okay. All right, let's get to Susan Smith. I'm so happy you all are here.
I do understand why they're having to do what they're doing. I'm all they have. Right now, they have not been able to rule anyone out. I don't think I'm any more of a suspect than anyone in this case right now.
It's very painful to know that anyone would think that either of us had anything to do with this abduction of our children. But me and my wife know the truth.
This poor guy. This poor guy. Yes, he believed her. Yes, he 100% did. He actually talks to FBI trainees and says, don't be scared to go after the parents because her story is not believable. And this is when they were on the Today Show.
I do understand why they're having to do what they're doing. I'm all they have. Right now, they have not been able to rule anyone out. I don't think I'm any more of a suspect than anyone in this case right now.
It's very painful to know that anyone would think that either of us had anything to do with this abduction of our children. But me and my wife know the truth.
He's furious. He's furious. Thank you, Alma. Thank you for the super sticker. I'm going to put the link in there so Alma can become a member as well, because I'd love to have you. We have a lot of stuff on that members live. Let me tell you what. We have a lot. So back to my pertinent question. Should Susan Smith be paroled next week? What do you think? It's a very easy yes or no.
Days away from coming face to face with members of the parole board, and members of the public in South Carolina have something to say about her possible release. The prosecutor who put Smith away is here with the latest on the upcoming hearing. Welcome to Crime Fix. I'm Anjanette Levy. Susan Smith will make her case to the South Carolina Parole Board on November 20th. And if you know anything about parole boards, you know that you can write to them, and people are writing to members of the South Carolina Parole Board to tell them what they think about the.
Let's talk about that. Let's talk about that, because some of you, because we have talked about Susan Smith quite a bit on this channel, have written to the parole board saying, do not let her out. Do not let her out. Don't do it. Don't do it. I know a couple of you. They have received tons of letters, tons of people saying, don't let that hoe bag out of jail. She did what she did on purpose. It was a big F you to David and a way to get the attention of the boyfriend.
The possibility that Susan Smith could be released after serving 30 years for the murders of her sons. I'm going to tell you more about people writing to the parole board shortly, so stay tuned. I really want you to hear about this. But first, a recap on how we got to this point. What Smith did is absolutely unimaginable. On October 25th, 1994, Smith was 23. She strapped her two young sons, 3-year-old Michael and 14-month-old Alex, into their car seats in the back of her red Mazda and rolled that car into John D. Long Lake. Susan Smith stood on the edge of that lake in Union County and watched as her helpless baby boys drowned. It took time. South Carolina's Law Enforcement Division would later say their experiment.
You wouldn't do this to a 3-legged dog with kidney disease, let alone your own babies. Your own babies. Carla Barnes, thank you for the super sticker. Thank you so much for donating this channel. Alma is now a YouTube member. Make sure you check out all the stuff that's only for members.
Showed it would have taken 6 minutes for the car to sink. Susan Smith had time to rethink what she had done. And as I've told you before, she didn't. What Susan Smith did next still shocks the conscience 30 years later. She reported that a black man had carjacked her and taken her car with Michael and Alex inside. It wasn't true. It was a lie that was racist and could have put people in harm's way. For 9 days, Smith kept.
And Jeanette's right. It did put people in harm's way because there wasn't anybody in Union County that wasn't trying to figure out what happened. But one person was much smarter than the others. And that was a detective from SLED that said the description she gave of the so-called Negro, as she said, were dull features. There was nothing, not a mole, not a freckle, nothing like that. It was a very bland description. You know what's not bland, though? Turtle Talk is now a YouTube member. That's what I'm talking about. Come to Mama. You're going to love it here. She about started a race riot.
Kept up the lie. The story of Michael and Alex supposedly being kidnapped made national news, and so did Susan Smith.
Whoever has my children, that they please bring them home.
And for those 9 days, Susan Smith's then estranged husband, David Smith, stood by her, consoling her, and he defended her when others questioned her story. I spoke with David Smith and his wife, Tiffany, recently.
You know, during those 9 days, my entire focus was on finding Michael and Alex and, you know, bringing them home. Nothing else mattered to me. You know, because I was hearing reports that she was failing polygraph tests, and I was trying to help her, give her suggestions on how to pass a polygraph, because I just, you know, I believed 100%. So I thought,
you know, after all this time, some people still give him hell for believing that bitch. They do. Wist said, and the rumor is that Susan had affairs with guards in the prison. It's not a rumor. It's true, Wist. We've done many shows on this. And oh, look at this. Turtle Talk. Are you kidding me? I'm a fellow Okie. Girl, let's go have lunch. Let's go have lunch. Let's do it. And he didn't even love the bitch. He just couldn't wrap his mind around that she would do anything to their children.
she was just failing these tests because she was going through trauma herself. You know, that Michael and Alex had been taken from her, and she was dealing with that, and she wanted them back too, just as I did. And so I was just trying to help her pass polygraphs, and I was trying to do anything humanly within my power to bring Michael and Alex back. That's all I was focused on. I didn't care about failed polygraphs. I didn't, all these stories, rumors that were going on, I didn't care. I just wanted Michael and Alex back.
After 9 days, Susan Smith finally confessed to what she had done. Smith killed her little boys, Michael and Alex, for a man. It was selfish and callous, and those words are probably not even harsh enough to describe it. It was just evil. Susan Smith murdered Michael and Alex because that man who had ended their relationship had told her he wasn't interested in raising children. SLED agents pulled the Mazda from the lake with Michael and Alex still strapped into their car seats. Solicitor Tommy Pope sought the death penalty against Susan Smith, but the jury opted for a life sentence instead. But the law at that time was written in a way that allowed a person sentenced to life to be eligible for release after serving 30 years. David Smith plans to speak against his ex-wife's release on November 20th.
No, I do not want Susan to be released. I don't know what I'm going to even say to the parole board other than I don't want to release, but more than that, I don't know. I know I'm just going to speak from the heart and, just remind them of, most importantly, the lives that she took, but also the lives that she changed forever. All the people all the family that, she changed. I don't know if it's the right way to put it, but history for like my life, the way my life's supposed to go. She changed all that. And I want to tell the parole board, you can't let her out.
He's right. He's right. Those precious boys that he absolutely loves, not loved, but loves with all of his heart, were taken from him. His life is always going to be about the murder, proven, not alleged, took away his family's lineage. He lost his whole family. Bitch goes to jail, his 2 sons are dead. It's ridiculous. And I agree with Wiz. She said life should mean life imprisonment. You got to check different states. There's a few that life is 25 years. So you commit a heinous crime at the age of 25, you're out at 45. Not saying it's not a long time in jail. Check your state. It's crazy.
I mean, she did it intentionally with malice and forethought, as they say in the courts. And 30 years is just not enough for justice for Michael and Alex. For her to come out of prison in the future would be an injustice to Michael and Alex. She needs to stay in there until she dies of natural cause or whatever. But she needs to stay there for the rest of her natural life.
So now I want to go back to what I was telling you earlier about people contacting the parole board. A spokesperson for the parole board told me the board has received 321 letters about Susan Smith's parole hearing. 319 of those call for her to remain in prison. Just 2 support Susan Smith's release. By law, South Carolina does not allow those letters to be released. The parole board will have a lot to consider when looking at whether Susan Smith should be released. The main consideration, has she been rehabilitated over the past 30 years? I want to tell you about a great free app. It's called Upside, and it will...
Oh, kiss my ass. Okay, here's the thing. Anjanette Levy, I'm really pissed at her right now. I don't want her free fucking app. I chased her down all over CrimeCon to get her to cover Michael Vaughn. And thus far, nothing has happened. So now I don't want her free fucking app.
Smith been rehabilitated to the point where she should be released from prison. And I know what you're going to say. What is your answer?
Yes, I obviously don't think she has based on her behavior. The juror, actually, some of them spoke after the trial and said the reason they gave her life as opposed to the death penalty was the belief that she would spend time, remorseful for what she did, thinking of Michael and Alex and the lives she had taken. She's exhibited, in prison, whether it's sex with guards or social media accounts. Now she's got sugar daddies that want to take care of her. And just recently was contracting or attempting to contract to somehow make money or profit from the story itself. So unfortunately, Susan is always focused on Susan, I think, from the time of the act till today. And you're exactly right. That's what I would be telling the parole board.
Yeah, and I'm glad you brought that up, the behavior in prison. Yes, she had sex with 2 prison guards. That is undisputed. And
yes, we had a question from Whiston here saying, and the rumor is she did things with prison guards. No, she did. Those dudes lost their jobs. She was with Big Bertha. Y'all remember Big Bertha? Big Bertha spent a lot of time chowing down all about the South on Susan Smith. She's got these men that write to her. One of them sold his house and said, I've got all the money for you. We've listened to her prison phone calls. Bertha was something else, man. God, I couldn't imagine. These women were taking turns to go to Susan's cell to, quote, pleasure her. Doors wide open. Come on. Come on. Come get you some. I haven't had a razor in 20 years, but come on.
She hadn't gotten any reprimands from 2015 until this year. And then in August of this year, she was caught, as you mentioned, communicating with a documentary film producer and having some conversations with that person. And she was told, telling this person apparently she would connect them with people involved in the case, including David Smith, which is confounding to me because David Smith told me he hasn't had contact with her in 30 years. The last time he had any contact with her was a month after her arrest. And, that's what he told me. And so it's the fact that she would even say she could connect the producer with David is interesting to me. And this person was putting money on her books. And so she's had a reprimand. She's had an infraction and she's been disciplined for that. So she lost canteen privileges for 90 days and tablet privileges. So it seems to me she almost, sounds like she almost thought she was readying for her release. Like maybe she thought she was getting out and she was going to do a movie.
I actually had one of the media groups that had come and interviewed me, played for me some tapes from some guys that are, having phone conversations with her from outside that talk about saving money up for her and taking care of her. And I'm sure for her, it's very exciting to have this much attention. She embraced the attention for that night.
Of course. She loves it. Jen Finn said she was trying to cut out the middleman, aka prison, from getting any profits off of this. It's disgusting. She's inhumane. Yeah, and look what she did to Big Bertha. Look at Bertha right here. Now, I don't know how Bertha has that 5 o'clock shadow, but her and Bertha had it going on. Boom, chicka, wow, wow. Boom, chicka, wow, wow. Yeah, she always had the cell door open for Bertha to come to the Susan buffet.
9 days, and it only got difficult for her when people like you started asking the hard questions instead of just being supportive. And so Susan is, histrionic. She's always the princess of the victim, and I think, she is proving to us right here at the worst possible time for her that she hasn't changed. And, going to David, the story that I always want to be told, I tell people, we didn't have cameras in the courtroom. If a prosecutor acts like he wants cameras, then I'm a glory hound. If I don't want cameras, I have something to hide. But I always wanted people to hear David Smith's story, because ethically, we couldn't tell that story. We heard about poor Susan out in the media, but you couldn't hear what David suffered through, what those boys suffered through. And so the story that needs to be told isn't Susan. She loves when it's about Susan. The story to be told is David Smith and the fight he's had for this 30 years. And he and Tiffany and the good days and the bad days. And, we always say that, let's focus on the victims. But, he's had a tough row, and I think he's handled it well.
He really has. He really has. And we spoke with him a few weeks back, and, just what he's gone through. And it's just been horrible. And he was supportive of her during those 9 days. That's the worst part, too, is that he believed her. So she's going to be able to speak in front of the parole board. David, he doesn't want her to get out. He said that very clearly to me, and he doesn't know what he's going to say, but he's going to speak from the heart when he speaks in front of the parole board. You have the opportunity to speak when this hearing happens on the 20th. What are you going to say to the parole board?
So mine is fairly straightforward. Actually, I don't want to eat up all of the airtime, because I think, as you just said, David speaking from the heart, his faith, the things that have brought him through. I think he's classy in the way he's forgiven her, because as a Christian, that's, absolutely what he feels he needs to do, but still feels she needs to be justly punished. As far as my part, really, it's twofold. It's, I believe in truth in sentencing. The jury believed that she received life. And so I want the parole board to basically enforce that sentence, coupled with Susan, the theme that we kind of started with. Susan hadn't learned her lesson. Susan is still about Susan, and doesn't deserve to get out.
I reached out to the parole board this week, and, I reached out to them back in August, and I asked in August, has anybody written to the board? And they said, no, we've received no correspondence. Well, as of this week, the board has received 321 pieces of correspondence. Out of that 321, the board tells me 319 pieces of the correspondence oppose her release, to support her release. So that's interesting to me, because I feel like in South Carolina in particular, and we can't read these letters, they're private by law. Like, unfortunately, we can't. I want to read them, but I can't.
Sure.
To support her release. So this is still very raw in South Carolina. Just the fact that she blamed a black man. This was like a racist thing that was conjured up in the conscience of the public, and it was a national story. This is still a very raw story 30 years later.
Sure. I think a couple things. I think one, and I want to give Union credit, at the time, it could have been explosively racist, in the way the community handled it. One lady, an African-American lady, said it best.
It was, but that wasn't her intention. She just knew that people would buy that easier than her being the perpetrator. And to be quite honest, if it wasn't for the timing of the traffic light, when the beautiful gentleman from SLED said that light couldn't have been red, and the description you gave has no significance to it. None. I don't want her to ever get out. I really don't. And I really do wish that jury had gone with death as opposed to life. Because a lot of times jurors don't know the law. And it's not explained to them properly. Like I said, there are some states, I'm not going to mention what state it is, I don't want to offend anybody. Life could be 20 years. All right. And you serve 80%. But death is death. And I do understand some people are against the death penalty. I live in a death penalty state. We will agree to disagree, but I do want to ask, I want to see, do you agree with the death penalty? Remember, they don't just take you out of the courtroom and go kill you. It takes a long time and a lot of appeals.
They said, well, what do you feel about the community blaming a black man? And she said the community didn't blame a black man. Susan Smith did. So the community was very good, even here in the Deep South, of focusing that this was her acts and her conduct. And so I think that, as far as the opposition, I think Union is weary of being the place where Susan Smith killed Michael and Alex. I think Union wants to move on. That's, every time these people travel, they say, I'm from Union. Isn't that the place where the woman killed the kid? So I think Union doesn't want Susan coming back, so you have that component. I think Susan drew in so many people, and, Michael and Alex became our children that were missing. We saw their faces. She begged us to help her find them. And, your heart was torn. When you then find that betrayal has occurred, I think it amplifies the grief, it amplifies the loss, and I think people, feel, again, betrayed by her and have less sympathy than you may in other circumstances. The defense always claimed it was a botched suicide. Well, I argued if she stopped the car for her, she could have stopped the car for the kids. If she had changed her mind, she'd been wet.
We know she changed her mind because when she went to that house to get help, she was wet up to her knees because she had been in the lake. She really thought she could get that car out and save the kids because she changed her mind. She changed her mind. That was one of the first things that investigators knew, is that she had been in that lake because she had waited down in there to try to get the kids out. Now, the picture, when they brought the car out with little Michael and Alex, there was a hand. A little baby hand on the window. They knew what was going on and they wanted to live. So these two, Leilani and Susan Smith, they're going to meet their maker next week. Well, not that maker, but there's huge decisions.
Her clothes had been torn, something. If she had run to that house and said, I did a horrible thing, I wasn't thinking, I rolled the kids down the lake, you and I would never be talking about this. There would be some mitigation in this case, but there's not. And it all comes back to Susan and her focus and her selfishness. And I think the people want to see justice served.
Yeah. And there was time for the boys to be saved. I mean, it took time for that car to sink.
About 6 minutes, 6 minutes. And we always say that lies are the best lies are coupled with the truth. I remember one time watching a video, where she'd close her eyes and just start telling, and she said, and the boys were just crying for me as the carjacker drove off. Well, I think the boys were crying for her as she rolled them in the lake.
Oh my God, it's just horrible. It's just absolutely awful to think about. Michael and Alex are the victims here, and David and Tiffany want them to be remembered, and they often get lost in this. I mean, they're frozen in time. I mean, they are, as Tiffany says, forever 3 and 14 months old, and we just have these photographs of them. I mean, that's all that's left. And David said he really barely has memories of them because it's been so traumatic. It's almost like a defense mechanism, a coping mechanism for him. So
I think that's exactly right.
These sweet little boys, you see their photos, but it gets lost in all of this talk about sugar daddies and sex with jail guards and documentaries. I mean, that's what really matters here. It's very sad. So you'll be speaking. This current solicitor will be speaking. We know David will be speaking. Your prediction, because it seems so rare to me that people get parole on the first go around anyway.
I think you're right. As time has evolved, we've gotten closer to the actual hearing. It is probably rare. Of course, I knew it was rare that a woman would receive the death penalty, but I felt strongly, based on all the things we've discussed, that she deserved the same thing that the black man would have gotten or David would have gotten. And so I always say I've had jurors nod at me and then come back with not guilty, so you never know. But my gut tells me she won't be getting out this time. The unfortunate thing for David, particularly, and Tiffany, is the nature of the system is this will be repeated, whether it's 2 years or whatever, area, however often they let her come back for parole, this will be repeated.
Okay, he's right, because she is up for parole. She is. It was not explained to the jury that if you don't give her death, she will eventually get parole. And hey, if she crosses all her T's and dots all her I's while she's in prison, she will most likely get paroled. Despite her heinous actions. Think about David's life sentence. This guy will always be known as the father of Michael and Alex. He always will. He has a life sentence. He has one. He lives in his own prison, but that prison is in his mind and one in his heart. How many times a day do you think Susan Smith cries for her children? And how many times a day do you think David Smith cries for his children? I'm going to say I guarantee David cries a lot for his children. A lot. He visits their memorial. He visits their graves. But the queen of the pogo stick there in the prison and playing tongue twister with Big Bertha, she doesn't care. She doesn't care.
Again and again and again for a long, long time, as long as they don't let her out.
Mm-hmm. And it will. And it's so sad that they're going to have to go through this over and over again. So we will look toward the 20th and see what happens and what is said. Thank you so much, Tommy Pope. We appreciate you coming on.
He's been on this case forever today, and he's right. This is not going to be the last time that David goes through this. Let's say next Wednesday, they say, nah, no parole for her. They go through it again. Now, I love this old boy right here because every 2 years they're going to go through this until they make a decision. Hell, I don't know. I mean, the way she's been acting, maybe she likes it there in jail. Well, look at that. Maisie's making it rain. Look at that. Bama Cat gifted a Crime Lines and Lies membership. Bunny Murphy, Gemini, Mary Jane, Lavender Dreamin'. Still don't know why we can't get one for Britt or Walking Dead. Let's get our umbrellas, please.
It's something that everybody's going to always remember. I mean, I'm sure for years to come, they're going to still remember that. But, you know, it's something that we have to put behind us and move forward as a community. And we know it's bad and it happened, but, you know, we have to forgive. Don't mean we have to forget it, but we will forgive.
Is that tough when these anniversaries come up? I imagine 10, 20, 25. Yeah, now we're at 30.
Well, it's tough. I mean, because, you know, it's brought up again, but I mean, it's got to be tougher on David, you know, because he's had to live with this all his life now. And I'm sure it's tough on him to have it, you know, brought up again and bring back old memories and stuff. But
absolutely, it's tough on him. Absolutely. And by the way, you do not have to wait to be gifted a membership. You can get your own. You can hit that link and you can play coin pusher and put your 8 quarters in. But absolutely, this is horrible on David. Absolutely. Thank you, Heaven's Little Angels. Endora was gifted a membership. You better thank my friend Heaven's Little Angels. I hope that next week, both Susan Smith and Leilani Simon get the day they deserve. Now think about what I said. I hope they get the day they deserve. Because they chose to take their children's lives.
You know, I know he's had to move on, but you're not going to forget it. Never will.
Has Union County moved on from it?
Union County has grown, you know, since that. You know, it took a while to get back on path, you know, get back to some type of normalcy that we had to have. And once we got back, you know, we've grown over the years. And like I said, the people, they haven't forgot about it, but they've moved on. And it's for a while it held Union back, I feel like, but you know, like I said, as time changes and we go on and put it in the past, and it helps us move forward and be a better community.
Is this a tight-knit community? Is this the type of community where, like, maybe even before this incident, a lot of people would have known Susan and David Smith here in town?
It is. It's like that. I mean, this in Union County, just about everybody knows everybody. Somebody's kin to somebody. So it's you know, it's a real close community. You know, we've got our population around 28,000 people, and we're a big county, but we're spread out land mass. But you know, as far as the communities go, you know, people you see everybody, and you pretty well know just about everybody, and that's why everybody knew her family, and it was a lot of emotions from people who knew her, and so that was a big thing.
I guess I should have asked, did you know Susan? Did you know David before any of this?
No, I didn't know Susan. Actually, David worked in Winn-Dixie, and at that time I had a part-time business, and we took care of that area. And I knew who he was when he worked there. That was all I knew about him.
After Susan Smith, there was Andrea Yates. You know, there have been other big cases. Like, how do we impress upon people that there are resources? Like, you don't have to go to these lengths. Right. You know, even today.
Yeah, and there's so many organizations out there now to help with mental illness. whether it be, Department of Mental Health or our faith-based.
Okay. In my opinion, and I am not a professional, this is not mental illness. This is called being a selfish bitch. Selfish. You don't like the old pogo stick. You don't like him. You're chasing him down for child support all the time. You found a new pogo stick to bounce up and down on. He doesn't want your ass. So what's the next thing? This is not mental illness. No. Alma. Oh my goodness. Y'all get your umbrellas. We got gifts coming out the wazoo.
Community, our faith-based community is big in Union, and it's all over too. But those folks there are willing to help and work with those people who's having troubled times. But sometimes you can have all the help in the world, but some people just got the meanness in their heart, and they'll claim mental illness, but it's just they're mean. That's just bottom line, Whether she had a mental illness, I don't know. She seemed pretty normal to me up until that point. So. I can't think of anything that would ever make me take the lives of my children. I mean, I can't even fathom that. I mean, I don't understand how you can do that, because my kids are important to me, and all kids are important to their parents. And so I don't know how I don't really think you can claim a mental health situation in her case. Now, I'm sure there are some out there. There's definitely some out there, and I'm sure they've been diagnosed and they have had the testing or whatever they're going to do to say that. But there's a lot of, like I said, there's a lot of organizations that will help people with mental issues.
So is this just cold, brutal murder?
I can't say whether I'm not a doctor. I can't tell you whether she had a mental illness or not, but I mean, I just think it takes a cold-hearted person to watch that happen. That's my opinion. And I just don't see how you could do it, because I would have, even if you did something like that and they went into that water, your instinct would be go get them. I would have died trying to get them. That's the way I look at it. I mean, if my kids were been that.
I love this guy, and he's right. If those were my kids, I would have died trying to get them. I would have died trying to get them. It's like I spoke about Jen Soto. If you guys have been watching, when we speak about the Madeline Soto case, Jen Soto, she wanted to get an attorney for Stephen Stearns, who was the man that was raping her daughter. I said, no. Somebody would have to get an attorney for me, myself, and I. Because it would be like the book, A Time to Kill by John Grisham. I would need the attorney because I go kill him. He's exactly right. I would kill myself trying to save my kids.
Situation, whether I helped it or it's an accident or whatever, I would have went in. I'd have probably died with them trying to get them.
We talked a little bit. There were a lot of conspiracy theories and stuff like that, kind of when all of this happened. Of course, there were searches done. There was the search at the lake. They just didn't think the car had made it that far, right?
Right. Yeah, they actually searched it one time before, and then I guess it's just they didn't account for the flotation of the vehicle and taking it further out. And so I think that's why it was missed the first time. They didn't locate it. So, but the technology we have today with the underwater drones and stuff like that, if we would have had that in '94, then it might have been a different case. We might have found them sooner. They wouldn't have been alive, but we would have found them sooner. But they give us every resource in Union County that I'm aware of, and I'm sure Sheriff Wells will tell you the same thing. It was made available to the sheriff's office at the time for every resource, whether it was military or state or federal, assets. I'm sure they were offered.
Yeah. Yeah, I guess that's one change, that technology and everything has progressed. Are there other changes that you kind of see in the community since when this happened that might help in a situation today?
No, I mean, it's just, like I said, it's going to bring up some more memories, but I think I think we'll overcome that. And I think everything will be good, but we're going to move on anyway, I'm sure.
Yeah. You still have evidence from this case,
right,
here at the sheriff's office.
Yeah, we have to. As long as she's incarcerated, we will keep the evidence. We have it stored. Yeah, sure do.
Do you have to go back and maybe pull out some of this evidence? Like, what happens with this parole hearing?
Well, I mean, I don't think they would ask for any evidence. I mean, it's basically she's been convicted, and it is what it is. But we have to keep that evidence just in case there's some type of motion being made, or it goes back to court for some reason, early release or something. Anything that would be pertaining to the court situation.
As we reflect back on this time, what else do you remember from either that time or how Union County, the city might deal with this as this kind of comes up again?
I think it'll be interesting to some people, the younger people that have heard about it but never really took the time to look into it. I'm sure with her coming up for parole and interviews like this one, that they're going to watch and they're going to ask more questions and probably look into it, and they'll probably ask their parents about it. Because it's like most of the people that work for me here in the sheriff's office, they were either small children at the time, or even I was talking to one girl. She was actually pregnant at the time, but I just asked her about it. She was pregnant at the time with her first child, when all this happened. So it left a mark on some of the people of Union County, and I think with all this coming up and her coming up parole, there'll be a lot more questions. I don't think it's going to bring up anything bad for Union County. It'll just bring up old memories, and hopefully that'll go away with the. If she don't make parole, then she's where she needs to be, and I think we'll put it to rest until she comes up again.
I know it created a little division in the community when all of this happened because of who she accused of doing it.
Right.
She accused a black man.
That's correct.
Of carjacking her.
Mm-hmm.
And that did kind of create a divide. Has that changed, or has that divide been
at the
healed?
At the time that happened, there was some divide and divisiveness, but as we moved on as a community and as Union County, we've moved on. We don't have that problem here. That's not something that we even think about around here. I mean, it is what it is. She made that accusation. It was wrong, but I think after time of getting that settled and let's moving on with it, we don't have that problem. The division's not here now. We have a great community relationship with the sheriff's office and the other communities. No matter what community it is. I mean, that's what we do. We work hard in the community to make Union a safe place to live. That's our goal here.
Well, in my opinion, they have. The problem is Susan Smith is not a safe person. When I was looking at some of the interaction she had with a man, and she said, I can't wait to be a mother again. I think I would be a great stepmother. Now shut the front door. If she treats her own children the way she did, how could you trust her with anyone else's children? How could you? This is messed up. And I feel bad for these men and women that investigated so much to get to the truth. And then what do they find out? She could possibly be paroled next week. Thank you, Blackwing Paranormal. I love you. You're awesome. Well, before I go, I just want to tell you guys something that I should say more and more often that I don't, and I should. I want to say thank you to people that put the shout out in. Rexy, member for 27 months. V. Oakley, my girl, 17 months. Heaven's Little Angels as a new member again. Alma, girl, what you been doing all day? My goodness. What on earth? You were donating, putting members in. My goodness, Retro Girl, thank you. Turtle Talk's a new member. Fellow Okie, Maisie, thank you. Thank you, Heaven's Little Angels. Blackwing Paranormal, been a member for 18 months. You all have no idea what you do to keep this boat afloat. Anyone that says it goes to me, and they might want to do some economics. I don't exactly have a place in Aspen where me and old DT Driver go and sit our asses down with OJ. Doesn't work that way. There's a lot that goes on behind the scenes with this channel, and when you support, just like right here, look at Wanda. Member for 1 year and 5 months. That's what I'm talking about. That's what I'm talking about. You guys are the absolute best. We have the best mod squad. I know there's been some YouTube issues with some things. I don't work for YouTube. I don't. So here and there, we have to get through the kinks. So back to my conversation. What do you think is going to happen with Leilani next week and with Susan? Think about it. Ponder on it. Ponder on it. Because I'm going to put a question up on the community tab shortly. You guys are the absolute best. Enjoy the rest of your hump day. And let's keep these victims in our prayers. Again, you all are the absolute best. If you run into someone that looks like this, Big Bertha, just say no bueno.